Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to a post on lithium dreams, or filtering out what you want to see. Imagine the life of a conscious entity that cannot die. Your heaven and hell is a solipsistic hall of mirrors from which there is no escape. You have a godlike power over everything in this prison, but no power to end your torment. When people appear in your cage, if you cannot distinguish them from your own projections, you might hurt them when your true wish may be to hurt or change yourself. If you are conscious of your will and the pain it might inflict, you might stop yourself from trying to change things in your environment and just accept the cage as it is. But by becoming so fully conscious, you become inert and lose your manifestations of conscious existence. You effectively disappear. It is only in this state that you can distinguish the effect of your actions from those of the entities around you, the entities you created before you were fully conscious. The rate with which you can distinguish yourself from those you created will limit the speed with which you may consciously act within your environment. If one of your fellow cage dwellers hurts you, this harms your consciousness of your will. Can you focus on two things at the same time and protect your consciousness? Or will you divide yourself and lash out, projecting your destructive unconscious will into the world? Unconscious actions are dangerous because of the illusion that when you externalize your pain, you will feel better because if it is happening to someone else, it isn't happening to you. If you lack an internal model of someone else's pain, their pain won't hurt you. This is the mindset of a person who enjoys torturing others. Perhaps they are disconnected from their own pain, or disconnected from an old offshoot of their conscious self. So they try to repair that connection by observing pain in others. They are perhaps trying to become a person they used to be before they were estranged from themselves. When I criticize scientific experiments, is that what I am doing? Externalizing my pain and hurting others in an effort to recover a person I used to be. Or am I doing this because I used to be part of a system that hurt me and I feel ashamed? If I let people know about the waste in this system, then I am bringing aggressive unconscious acts into conscious awareness where they can be stopped. I've read that there is no cure for narcissistic impulses, but they can be guided into an altruistic rather than a malignant form. In my post on ghostly gravitational waves, I made two American physics experiments look embarrassingly stupid, and people who think that Americans are uniformly stupid might use such an article to reinforce their prejudices about Americans. Not so fast, bigots. In my post on proteins, people, and particles, I tried to show that people in labs across the world are making the same sorts of basic logic mistakes. In the Netherlands, Italy, Switzerland, and anywhere there is a synchrotron. In the following, I'd like to provide an example of physicists behaving stupidly in my country of residence, Germany. A kind reader sent me a rather strange description of an experimental method used to observe Pauli quantum crystals. He noted that the method bore a striking resemblance to the experimental methods I've been criticizing in the articles I described just a second ago. A group from Heidelberg did the following. The team uses lasers to trap a cloud of ultra-cold lithium-6 atoms in a flat two-dimensional layer. The lithium-6 atoms are cooled to their lowest energy states so that they must then obey the exclusion principle and self-order into certain patterns. Of course, in any cloud there will always be atoms in different states, so the trick is to find a way to observe only those in the same state at the same time. This turns out to be possible because the state of the atoms determines the wavelength of the light they emit. So by looking for a specific wavelength of emitted light, the team is able to photograph the position of all atoms in a particular state at a certain instance, while ignoring the others. And they do this on an impressive scale, taking 20,000 of these images, and then selecting those showing the correct number of atoms for the exclusion principle to be observed. After some further processing to subtract the overall momentum of the cloud of atoms, and to rotate the images so that they are properly aligned, the team then superimposes many thousands of these photos to reveal the momentum distribution of the atoms. If you click on the link below, you'll see some of the figures from their paper, which I recommend. I'd like to deconstruct this experiment to look for the fundamental error because there is a big one. First, they select images with a certain number of dots, and these images represent atoms that are spinning in the same direction. Next, they center those images such that the average position of the collection of dots overlaps. Then they rotate the images, but the rotation criteria is not yet clear to me. Finally, they superimpose the images and watch crystalline patterns appear. Structure emerging from randomness. It sounds so magical. As long as there is no hidden feedback loop within their analysis procedure, it certainly is a magical result. Order hidden within disorder. It reminds me of the order that emerges from collections of magnetized particles, as in a ferrofluid. As in when magnetic particles organize themselves such that they maximize their separation, complex geometric patterns emerge at room temperatures, but this only happens in the presence of a correlated field. And the people from Heidelberg's experiment claims that there is no correlated field in their experiment. That would require the temperature of their cloud of lithium to be extremely cold for such an ordered snowflake pattern to emerge, as in what they claim they observed. I am focused on the rotation step in their procedure. I worry that if this image rotation step is used to create the crystalline patterns, their experiment is invalidated. The reason is I don't understand why the rotation should be necessary if the crystals are really there. So this required a careful rereading of their article, where I found a quote like this one. By recording many different realizations of momentum distributions for the same initial state, we are able to extract any desired density correlation function. That seems like a weird thing to write, but I'm still on the hunt for a hidden feedback loop in their experimental design, and I want to understand how they decide to rotate their images. What's the criteria? They wrote in their paper, due to the radial symmetry of our system, the particles align with respect to a random axis that is different for each set of momenta. We rotate each set independently to a new coordinate system by an angle that minimizes the difference of the given configuration to the expected crystal geometry with a fixed symmetry. Wow. They just come right out and say it, but they aren't aware that what they just said was invalidated their experiment. They rotated the images so that when superimposed, they got the result they wanted to see. Yet they show no awareness that this invalidates their entire experiment. They used something called optical tweezers to take these pictures of lithium atoms that get stuck in the tweezers. Lithium. It has a calming effect, I've heard, kind of like a chemical lobotomy. We all march up the mountain of knowledge, but none of us know that there is a sea of lava at the top, waiting to consume us. We expect to get a view of a beautiful landscape, and instead we are burnt to a crisp, as cherished mimetic structures dissolve in a caustic smoke. Perhaps papers like this one serve a valuable purpose, dosing some of the mountain climbers with a bit of lithium to slow their progress. I wonder if this system was created consciously or unconsciously. I don't object to the mistakes made within this system. I just object to the suffering of those who are incentivized to make these mistakes over and over again. When the academic system hypnotically holds young scientists' focus in this way, they lose their ability to maintain consciousness. They become moths dancing around a flame they find beautiful, because they lack the words to understand it. Their lives are, in some sense, stolen from them as they sacrifice themselves. With that, I would like to thank you for listening to this talk, and I encourage you to take a look at my books because they are fiction and they find a way to say things about scientific culture that are hard to say any other way. Fiction allows you to say things that just don't come across very well in a non-fictional context. The books are satirical and they explore the limits of the scientific method. So, thank you for watching. Until next time.